Hi, everybody. This is Brad Johnson, senior reporter here at the Texan. I'm with Senator Mays Middleton. Senator, welcome back.
Thank you all for having me today.
It's been we're here at the Texas GOP convention. We're going to talk a few things. First, let's start off. There's a big Title IX discussion going on nationally. What are your thoughts on that?
So I don't know if you remember the bathroom bill. That was in 2017, and at the time, everyone said, "Y'all are crazy. This is not a real issue. This is never going to happen." Well, guess what? Joe Biden's Title IX rules will end up forcing boys into girls' restrooms. And not only that, they're actually going to hold school district teachers, administrators liable for using the wrong pronoun for kindergartners. I mean, they're coming after our children. So Texas has to fight back. Obviously one of the ways that we did was to save girls' sports and save women's sports bill, which I was the author of the Save Women's Sports. And of course that kicks men out of women's college sports, and it's just a basic fairness bill. I mean, you can't have fair competition when women are forced to compete against men, and too many generations have fought too hard for that opportunity through Title IX. And there are some other things that we did pass in the Senate last session that would have helped with this issue. Number one was a bill by Senator Perry, and what it said is that your God-given sex is what stays on your birth certificate. Right? You can't change your sex on your birth certificate. And the other thing was in the school choice bill. And this one is really important. It's done in Florida, and we almost did it in Texas if the House had passed the bill. But it said you cannot discuss sexual orientation or gender ideology K through 12. So of course there's more to do.
Yeah. You're going to try and bring those back next session,
There's
right?
a lot more to do. We've got to get those done. Of course, there's a lot more that's in his bad Title IX rewrite that we've got to stop. But look, at the end of the day, one of the most important obstacles, I guess, or biggest obstacles is taxpayer-funded lobbyists. Because that bill that I talked about earlier, that stops boys from going into girls' locker rooms and restrooms and showers, your school tax dollars were used to lobby against that bill. So literally, taxpayer-funded lobbyists are cheerleading Joe Biden's Title IX plan to take away fairness from girls and women and get boys into their little girls' shower and locker room, bathroom.
Well, we saw taxpayer-funded lobbying. It fell off the legislative priority list last time, and it's actually probably going to be back on.
We hope so.
The committee report has it on there. The argument for it is right to petition your government. What's your counter to that?
So a government is a creation of the people, by the people, and for the people. So for example, if you don't like what Bud Light stands for, if you don't like what Target stands for, you quit shopping there, right? You don't buy their product. But if you don't like, for example, that your city or county is lobbying against border security, well then you quit paying your property taxes and they come and take your home. So it is forced speech. And we also don't need a middleman, right? We are elected to represent our constituents. We don't need some Austin taxpayer-funded lobby middleman between us on the state level, so state reps and state senators, and local government. And look, there's 1,200 school districts, there's about that many cities, there's 254 counties. That's a lot to keep up with, but you've never heard the state say, oh gosh, this is so difficult for us to keep up with. We'd better hire a lobbyist to go to commissioner's court, or a lobbyist to city council, or a lobbyist to the school board meeting. We know our job is to represent them directly, and second of all, they don't represent their values. So here's a good example. Like the County Judges and Commissioners Association of Texas, they're supposed to represent rural Texas counties, which rural counties vote probably at least 80% for Trump, I'd say more, probably more, some of them 90, some of them more than that. Well, their lobbyist gives to Act Blue. So how does that represent rural Texas?
Fair question. In the House, which you served in, the taxpayer-funded lobbying ban died, and I don't think it really got much steam this past session.
It never even got a hearing in the House last session.
Are the votes there now, you think? Or we saw this massive sea change in the House. Still waiting to see how these runoffs turn out, but does it have a shot now, do you think?
Yes,
okay.
And here's why. So the more liberal Republican state representatives that were against school choice were also against the ban on taxpayer-funded lobbying. And obviously conservatives did very, very well on Election Day on March 5th. I expect us to continue to do well in the runoff on May the 28th. And so when we have the votes for school choice, which we will after this runoff, we're going to have the votes to pass the ban on taxpayer-funded lobbying because they're the same people against both, right? So when you have the votes to pass school choice, that means you've got the votes to pass the ban on taxpayer-funded lobbying.
Well, the headliner in the runoff on Tuesday is, of course, the Speaker of the House, Dade Phelan. I don't know where you stand on that, but I don't think he's been very supportive of a taxpayer-funded lobbying ban generally. Are you hoping for a David Covey win, or what do you think? What do you think is going to happen as well?
Well, I'm excited about a new conservative House. So we've got 7 potential pickup votes in the runoff. I think 6 are incumbents. One is, I may have that number wrong. One is an open race. But look, 7 votes will get us to 80 votes for school choice. We've got to have a more conservative House, because I'll back up a little bit on the Democrat chair issue too. Through the history, I think this is important because it's something that's not talked about very often. That happened in the 1970s with the Speaker of the House at the time, Billy Clayton. And Billy Clayton was a Democrat, but he was a conservative Democrat, and he campaigned for Bill Clements, who was the Republican running for governor. He campaigned for Ronald Reagan. And he appointed Tom Craddock, who's still in the legislature today, to chair the Natural Resources Committee to advance conservative values, right? So up until that point, it was majority rules. Majority party appoints all the committee chairs. And the reason why that rule was broken was to give Republicans more of a say and to advance conservative values. Well, today, Democrat chairs serve the opposite purpose of that. They're hurting conservative values and conservative bills. So this is a piece of history that people forget, and why the non-controlling party, so the non-majority party, was able to get those committee chairs. It was for conservative values, not to hurt them, not to hurt conservative values, but to actually advance them.
Well, of course, it's not just Democratic chairs that have killed, take Texas GOP priorities or whatever you want to use as the barometer. Republicans are too. There's a very real ideological divide in the Republican Party, and we're seeing it play out on a wide scale. Where do you think this thing goes? Well,
it's pretty simple. You do what you said you were going to do, and I'm pretty sure that everyone there right now campaigned as a conservative, so probably shouldn't lie to your constituents and say that you're conservative and vote the other way in Austin. And you see this a lot, where people grow up there and they want to be liked and loved, and they start listening to those liberal Austin lobbyists first and their constituents second. And that's the problem that I've seen happen a lot in Austin, where they forget who brought them to the dance, basically. Conservatives brought them to the dance, and it's their job to deliver on those conservative promises they made. Actually, that's one of the reasons I ran for state representative. I ran against an incumbent who is no longer living up to his conservative promises. And that's what a primary is for. This isn't a position for life. It's there for accountability and to make sure that you're doing what you said you were going to do.
Senator Middleton, it's going to be fun watching what happens next session as we start another 140-day sprint. Thanks for joining.
Thank y'all. Thank y'all for having me on today. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Brad.